The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Film Foundations, the collaborative show between Weirding Way Media and Someone's Favorite Productions. I'm your co-host, Chris Stashu, all the way from the internet's worst movie podcast, The Culture Cast.
You're so hard on yourself.
Oh, no, I'm just joking. I always say, what is the thing I say on my show? Much to the chagrin of many, I am still the host of this show.
Anyways, I'm the other co-host, Ryan Verrill from The Disconnected. I hope people don't hate me, but some many do.
Ryan Verrill. Much to the chagrin of some, maybe.
For sure.
A couple. On this show, we ask and answer 4 questions about a given topic in the world of film that is either an actor, director, franchise, or micro-genre. Micro-genre, what is that? It's a genre within a genre. So, melt movies are a microgenre within the horror franchise, or horror subgenre, as it were. Our job is to entice you and to broaden your horizons on film, to encourage you to travel down film tangents like we're about to, and side roads that maybe you wouldn't have traveled otherwise, especially when it comes to making some connections to films and other kinds of films in this show. As you can tell, if you've clicked on this episode, you know what our topic is. Our topic is the Harry Potter film franchise. We will keep the discussion to the Harry Potter book series to a minimum. Why, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Because J.K. Rowling is not the kind of person who I would like to talk about. We can talk about the things that they have made, but not the person behind them, because the person behind them, like so many other things, is a person, just like me and you, and they have human problems like not liking everybody, which is on them, not on us. So that's just to get out of the way, J.K. Rowling. We're not going to badmouth her, though she deserves it. But we're not going to on this episode. We're going to be talking about all the people who made the Harry Potter films, worth checking out. Why, who, where, the directors, some of them still surprising to Ryan to this day that they directed Harry Potter movies. To be fair, me too. So Ryan, before I give a little bit of my thoughts on Harry Potter, I have to know, because this is, I think, going to be a me talking most of the episode thing, given our slight difference in age, I think is enough. Like, just enough for it to... I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to it for my stuff, but I gotta know. Harry Potter, Ryan. Why are you sitting here listening to me talk about it is the question. Because you said you're not gonna... You said it's not a 99% me episode. So why is it 99% me on this episode?
I did just miss the boat, I think. When the first film came out, I was 14, just a little older. It felt like it was geared towards people just a couple years younger than me. It's not like I was against it or anything. It just wasn't my thing at the time. I'm also not, I've talked about this before, not huge into fantasy. And so when it comes out and it's clearly about wizards and stuff, I'm not like itching to go to the theater to see that, unfortunately. But at that point, my only real interactions with the idea of Harry Potter's, I knew some people that had read the books and were fanatical about them. And the books at that time were still coming out. A lot of people don't remember that. When that first movie dropped, it was not, the series was not over. We were still getting
3 books into the series. Yeah.
right. So my first personal interaction with this is going to be a really funny story because, man, was it sad. I was in, I think it was 2005, one of the books dropped. And I was at that time working at Walmart in a tiny town in the desert in California. And I got picked to be on the midnight shift for a midnight Harry Potter book launch. And as we opened the Walmart doors at midnight, because they were not open 24/7, a grand total of 2 people walked in the door to buy a copy of Harry Potter. I I was so pissed off that I had to come work this super late shift for 2 people to come in and buy a book.
So if you're listening to this episode of our show and you happen to be one of those people, Ryan still holds it against you to this day.
But yes, the film franchise, my history with them, I think I've seen all of them at least twice. The first 4 or 5, I've probably seen 3 or 4 times. And I think only one of those rounds of watching all of these were all my choice. I knew I wanted to watch them at least once. It's such a big deal. It's kind of one of those things where it's a part of the zeitgeist. I probably should watch it. That way I can have some sort of an opinion. I would say I wasn't surprised by the quality. They're well-made films, clearly. I think personally it's nice to see what's the best way to say this? It's nice to see the franchise itself age with the characters.
Right.
Because in that first film, it's very kid cutesy type of storyline. And then those last couple movies are like, yeah, fuck you, we're gonna kill everybody. This is a dark movie, and it's cool. It's nice to see that sort of thing grow up with the watchers and the viewers and the readers that love these things from the beginning. I like that part. The cast in these are obviously incredible. Like some of the biggest names ever are in these movies. Yeah, they're still not entirely my thing, but obviously it's a huge part of pop culture. Continues to be. Much to the chagrin, to take your words, of everybody that is anti the author behind the story. And I'm going to go a step further than you did. I'm not even going to say her name in this episode. She doesn't deserve it.
Nope.
For anybody that's listening to this, when we're going to be covering some sort of topic in the future that includes somebody that's been, quote, canceled, which I hate that fucking term, but when we're covering somebody like this that is known for being a piece of crap or as done something incredibly offensive, we are going to do our best to separate the art from the artist, promote to everybody the fact that, I mean, these are 8 movies that clearly took a lot of work. The writer behind the books didn't have to do a whole lot to get these movies made, obviously. So, yeah, she wrote the story, came up with the character names, but when it came to actually making the movies, it was literally hundreds and hundreds of people involved, and they all deserve some time to shine. So we're going to focus on those people.
Well, and to your point, I think it's going to be even funnier. I'll just go in and bleep her name out when I said it, which is even the funnier part. So you can guess as to who we're talking about, as if you don't already know. But I think, and I think to your point, and again, I want to echo this as well, because I in terms of my experience and time with Harry Potter, this is part of it. So I'll get to it when I talk about it. So Harry Potter, obviously, book series came out 1997 in June. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone overseas. On this side of the pond, apparently philosophers means nothing to anyone. So the term Sorcerer's Stone is used, obviously. I prefer Philosopher's Stone. I know Sorcerer's Stone has a little bit of alliteration to it, which lets it glide off the tongue a little bit easier, but the book series, like I mentioned, was released in 1997. The first film gets released in 2001. Like Ryan already mentioned, the first film does come 4 years after the first book. But, and I think this, to your point, is one of the smartest things that they did, period, with these books, was casting it and shooting them in a way where, like you said, they age up with the actors. So, and look, we literally can point to things now that have not done that, and that have not succeeded at all. Looking at you, Stranger Things, like, wow. Wow, in a lot of ways. Like, the amount of, like, mental gymnastics and plot gymnastics they've had to do to get the characters to like, oh, well, of course, there's been 5 years in between. It's like, oh, they're like adults now. How does this work? Harry Potter took that problem and kind of ran with it. But also, again, they cast the first movie 4 years. It came out 4 years after the book. So that's the other thing that they avoided that I think, again, if you're a fan of fantasy, you're probably imminently aware of if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, which is we're still waiting for the final book to come out, final 2 books to come out, actually, because of Sound of Winter, or whatever the hell that book that's supposedly coming out, George R. R. Martin claims is still not out, and that show's done. So Harry Potter had the benefit of, again, coming out at a time where you could do this, where they cast young actors, where they cast the young actors correctly, where they committed to those actors being cast, and they worked with them from film 1 until the last, like you mentioned, the last film. Last film comes out 4 years after the last book comes out, too. So the characters' ages are pretty accurate, I think, to what the expectation was in in the book series. But now, again, to talk personally, and I want to mention it because I don't think I've gotten my opinion on this matter out on this podcast, but on the Culture Cast, we talk about it frequently. I'm not a fan of cancellation culture either. I think that it should be viewed more as you're finding your audience, whatever that means, and you're making your intentions clear as to who you want your audience to be. Look, if you're someone that is homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic, racist, there are other people like you in the world, and they will gravitate towards the things that you make. But guess what? I don't think I want to be part of that group. If you do, and that's the audience you want to attract, fine. Far be it from me to tell you not to, because again, we know that it's not like someone's a racist and everybody cancels them. That's not the case. I wish it were, but there are plenty of people that not only agree with this person, but probably like this series more now because that's the case, which is a problem, obviously. But at the same time, like you mentioned, this person has made their audience intentions clear, and they've made their own personal feelings clear. The thing is, this is the other thing to tie it back to me personally. I am 33 years old. Harry Potter came out when I was 7, the book, and then the first film came out when I was 11. I am the target audience for this film.
Clear.
Period. Here's the thing. I didn't read the books until I was an adult. I didn't read the books until long after I had seen all the movies. I didn't like the movies growing up. I have no problem admitting it. I even have no problem admitting I didn't even like Lord of the Rings when I was growing up. Lord of the Rings is now the trilogy for me. It is something that I put on frequently because it's a comfort film for me, especially the first one and the second one, not so much the third one. But Harry Potter has that same feel for so many people my age. Like, it's something you grew up with. It was as big or bigger than Star Wars because these movies were coming out and were good in a way that Star Wars, when we were growing up, was not. And I understand the bristling at having to watch these movies or have anything associated with the author who penned them. But like you've mentioned, we have to remember, and especially us, but not just us, but I think the world at large needs to understand that, like you've said, I will parrot it 100%. There are how many people, like, this person didn't hold the boom mic, wasn't behind the camera.
Right.
They are not in front of the camera either, clearly. So again, I'm not saying like it's the adult thing to do to be able to compartmentalize these things, but to compartmentalize these things is not easy, but it is something worth doing because, yes, I'll just say it right here. These movies are worth watching. I would even say some of the books are worth reading. Does that take away from the fact that the person who wrote them is a deplorable human being who cannot stop themselves from putting their foot in their mouth as recently as like a week ago? No, it doesn't change any of that, but it also doesn't change the fact that the source material, the movies, are not anti-Semitic. They are not racist. They are not transphobic. They are not homophobic. They are creations of the author that were then adapted. They don't, unless Harry Potter comes out and says, I hate gay people, there's no homophobic slant in Harry Potter. There's none of that. And again, plenty of authors inject their stories with their own feelings and ideas, and we'll get to it when we get to it, because some of these movies later on, I think, suffer from that, the author's bullshit feelings getting in the way of making a narrative that works in a satisfying way, especially with some of the outcomes of some of the characters. But I think for me, and for, like I said, a lot of people my age, Harry Potter is a seminal set of films and books that are hard to ignore, because from, say, 1997 to 2011 or 2007, when the final book came out, they were literally the biggest fucking thing. Like you said, people lining up to get the books, people lining up to watch the movies. I mean, I remember I had friends, like I was 21 when the final movie came out, which is crazy to think about, frankly, that the final movie came out in 2011. Like, I mean, it doesn't seem like that was that long ago, but at the same time, 2011 and 1997 and 2001, like 2001 and 2011 feel like the fucking one side of the moon and the other side of the galaxy from each other, in terms of like the world that the first movie comes out in into a world that the last movie comes out in. I mean, we literally had 9/11, economic crashes, and all kind of stuff in the span of Harry Potter being a series. So it was something that a lot of people my age gravitated towards. It was easy to gravitate towards because the ideas in the book are, you're a kid, maybe you're from a bad household, but you can be saved and sent to Hogwarts and make your own way. And like, plenty of us can 100% resonate with that, coming from a household that, again, you feel othered in, and you go to a place where you are no longer the other. You are part of a group of people that are in the same boat as you, becoming wizards and witches or what have you. So it's, I mean, ultimately a story that's about acceptance and and creating a found family in a lot of ways.
Right.
And ends up, having a lot of resonance with people our age, because I think a lot of millennials, I think you would agree with me, found families are as important, if not more important, to people our age. And I think that, I'm not going to say that's a uniquely millennial thing, but I don't hear Gen Xers talking about that as much as I hear millennials do. And I don't hear boomers talking about it as much as I hear millennials do, talking about found families. And like, my found family is almost as important, if not more important, than my own family. And I mean, I think for me, it's like 50-50, and sometimes they edge each other out. But again, like, I understand also where your found family is your family, and you don't call them your found family because they're your family. And I mean, and again, that's what Harry Potter really talks about, is what does it mean to find a group of people that are your family, even though you're not related to them? Because we have characters literally bringing Harry Potter into their household and treating them like a member of the family, when he is literally just the wizarding world's most famous person, which on top of everything else. And that's the thing, obviously, when we're talking about Harry Potter, that again, I don't feel like gets mentioned enough. And I'm going to mention it here, and, shout me down from the mountaintops, but Harry Potter is a white savior story, ultimately. And is that a problem? No, because so is Star Wars, so is Lord of the Rings. So that you can talk about all of them. Now, look, when you adapt it, you can cast it however the hell you want. I wouldn't be surprised, because we haven't mentioned it, there's a Harry Potter, they're readapting the books now. So,
of course.
Right, but and here's the thing, I have no problem with it, because as far as I'm concerned, the correct platform and vehicle for something like this is television, period. I actually think television, in a lot of ways, is the art form for adaptation of books, and especially trilogies and series of books, because like, with the things that you like that are adapted, have you read Harry Potter at all? You've seen the movies, right?
I've read literally a tiny bit, less than 20 pages.
So you're like Dakota Johnson, then. You've seen 4% of the Marvel movies, which is half of 5 minutes of one, I guess. Yes. For me, the books are, or whatever, the movies are decent adaptations of the books, but the movies leave a lot of the stuff in the books out that I think is somewhat interesting and actually is worth mining. So yeah, I think Game of Thrones and a lot of other things really set a precedent for, if you have a series of books or a trilogy of books, or 7 goddamn books in this series case. Why you need to milk that, and I mean really milk it, for 7 seasons of TV. You're going to get more out of 7 seasons of TV than you're ever going to get out of 8 movies, even if you split the last book into 2 movies, which, to lead into our first question, I think that this is one of the few series that actually works when it comes to splitting its last book into 2 movies, because the other thing that I can think of that did that, or the other 2 things, one of which I don't think we'll ever do on this show, unless we want to do like an April Fool's episode on Twilight, which I would do because I've seen all those movies. Twilight and Hunger Games did that same thing where they split their last book into 2 parts, into 2 movies. And Hunger Games and Twilight, God, I mean, they're like literally treading water in that second Twilight movie. Harry Potter, I think, is one of the few series that actually made that work, because in a lot of ways, the movie adaptations of some of the later books leave shit out like crazy. And again, someone's typing in the comments furiously, but what about Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings? What about him? Sometimes some of these things are not critical and crucial to the narrative the way that they're adapting it. I get that it might be crucial and critical to the narrative as it's written on the page, but you can't 1 for 1 unless you're doing TV, and then you can drag your feet and really let it play out. I wouldn't be surprised if the Harry Potter show is like 12 episodes a season or something. Like, there's enough there to really drag your feet and give the audience and give the audience who has never seen these things or who has a new appreciation for it. But also, I'm hoping that when they readapt these things, they're going to have something worth watching that's not just this again. Because again, this is so good, you can't throw this out with everything else when something new comes out. They're not readapting it because the movies are bad. And when we get to our third question, we'll talk about, in my mind, what the pop culture influences, and that leads to, I think, why they're readapting it. But all of that to say, I think Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, those are like big names when we're talking about franchise filmmaking. Yep. And I think Harry Potter, that's deserved. Now, does it suck again that the people who created it are terrible? Yes, but I mean, George Lucas doesn't go around telling us what he thinks, probably for the best. I don't know anything about him outside of what I've read, but he doesn't go around offering his personal feelings on things like this. And he may, God knows, who knows? Just because people don't, like, the absence of information is not proof. The absence of information is just the absence of information, and you're making your own conclusions, is what I'm saying. When an author of something like this offers up their feelings, different story. So, all of that to say, Harry Potter is something I think just worth checking out if you've never seen it before. But what you should check out is the first question of our podcast.
What a great transition. So I will take this first one first, because my answer is going to be so simple, and I'll let you go on, obviously. But I personally, I think watching these in order is the absolute best way to do this, of course, because it's a story that's expanding on each other. And it's not like some other franchises where if you come in at, the 4th movie, you can probably get a vibe of what's going on, but there's just already so much like character development and understanding of why characters are the way they are that you got to watch the first one first. And to be fair, I think I don't know if this is sacrilegious to say, because I don't know how everybody feels about these, but I think the quality of these like greatly increases as the franchise goes on. However, that first one is still pretty damn good. Like it's still a very fantasy-filled world that you can get lost in easily. I totally understand the appeal behind these. They're well made. They've got great effects. They've got incredible acting. My answer is clearly the first one.
So my answer is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I'm just kidding. And that's when everybody left the show. That's everyone's like, these guys are fucking clowns. Goodbye. Look, we are including the Fantastic Beasts movies in this. Will they show up as an answer? I don't think so. But we are including them here because there will be never another opportunity for us to talk about them. Thank God, frankly, and a lot.
Now that you said that, some guest in the 4 months is going to contact and goes, "Have you done the Fantastic Beasts franchise?"
That's 3 movies. It's 10 movies now. I mean, it's 10 movies with all of them. And I think it was...
Isn't it 11? 8 Harry Potter, 3 Fantastic Beasts?
Oh, yeah. No, I guess you're right. I always forget that there's 2 movies. So, yeah, 11 in the series. 3 Grindelwald movies and then 8 Harry Potter movies.
Grindelwald.
When I did the culture cast on the first Fantastic Beast movie, whenever the hell that movie came out, like 2015, I'm pretty sure, my co-host at the time could not for the life of him keep the names of the characters straight. So he called Grindelwald Grindelgorf, and it has stuck with me since. So I think for me, yes, the obvious answer here is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. However, I will put a caveat here for a couple reasons. A, I think the only version of the movie worth watching is the extended version of the movie, which is available on
HBO Max, I believe.
Yeah. No. It is on Peacock TV. And I do not think that I know. It's on Peacock. Go look. That's where I'm watching it right now. They used to be on HBO Max because that's where I used to watch them. But
isn't that where the show's coming? Is
where the show is coming, which is why it was weird to me that when I went to look today where they're streaming, it's literally streaming on Peacock, which makes very little sense to me. I don't know how rights work with stuff like that, but the extended version of the movie does add some scenes from the book that are, I think, again, not necessarily needed, but I think just help add more flavor to the world. And the first movie is fantastic. I will say, and I think we alluded to it when we were talking before recording. My only issue with the first movie, genuinely, is the amount of oohing and eyeing there is. Like, look at the fucking brooms. Look at the sorting hat. Look at the... And, I get it, because at the time, it was like, look at these things that you've only read about. Here's the Great Hall, and the candles floating, and the night sky, and, Professor Quirrell, and Snape, and all this stuff. These are things that had only ever been put to paper, and so sitting here now in 2024 going, well, I like the one that's extended more because it gives me more information. That was not the option at the time.
Right.
That the only thing you watch is the original one. And the oohing and eyeing in the first movie gets to be a little much after a while because they really linger on a lot of stuff. They linger on the things in the world, which, I mean, again, if you're talking the movie to do it, it's the first one. And through and through, if you're going to do it, it needs to be the first one because you can't be wasting, and maybe not even saying wasting, but you can't spend time on oohing and eyeing in every other movie because then every other movie will just feel like the first one. And to be fair, like you've already kind of alluded to, past the first movie, past the second movie, I would say, maybe, and we'll get to it when we get to it, but past the first and second movies, it becomes a very different tonal film series. Oh, yeah. It becomes very different tonally. The first 2 movies, I think, allow the ooh and the ah and the magic of the world to really, kind of just present itself and allow it to breathe in a way that the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th movies aren't necessarily interested in because they're less about creating the world, but more about fleshing out the characters and their backstories and their hates, wants, needs. All of that is fleshed out more in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th movies. But the first movie is amazing. And it is a seminal piece of filmmaking because in a lot of ways, fantasy films for children were not like this at the time. And in a lot of ways, now fantasy films for kids follow this mold to a T. This Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner. I mean, we could go back and forth for hours just naming all of these things that exist now for teens and young adults that were adapted because of the success of Harry Potter, but they're done the same way as the first Harry Potter movie. Now, if it's me and I'm answering a little bit more kind of candidly and less, I wouldn't say obviously, because I don't want to take away from your answer. Like you said, it's the obvious answer, and I think it's the right answer. I would say if you can stomach maybe not knowing everything that's going on in a movie, the second movie I think is the better movie in terms of a place to start because the second movie has less of the oohing and eyeing and more of more of some stakes being injected to the plot, and the extended version of the second movie is like 3 hours long. And the second movie has my favorite character in the entire series. So I'm a little biased. But at the same time, I think for me, the first two movies are of a piece for a number of reasons. Directed by Chris Columbus, who, as far as I'm concerned, not only the right director for this, but the perfect director for this series. I don't think he was needed past the second movie for obvious reasons, because, again, I don't really associate Chris Columbus with... It's not that I don't associate him with mature things, but I associate him with a certain kind of tone that all of his Harry Potter movies have, most of the movies he's directed has, because he directed Stepmom, Mrs. Doubtfire, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2. Like, a lot of he directed Rent, which still blows my mind. But for me, whenever I think of Chris Columbus, I think of a director, and in a lot of ways, because, again, not to forget that he also wrote Gremlins and Goonies. He works with young people and young adults better than a lot of directors do.
Oh, yeah.
He gets those performances out of younger actors the way that all the other directors wish they could, and the way that they talk badly about young people, like, you never work with kids and you never work with animals. Like, Chris Columbus is the outlier that proves the rule there, because he gets better performances out of child actors than I think anybody else. And the first Harry Potter movie has some terrible acting in it, namely from the 3 child leads. They're terrible. I'm a what? There's just so much. It's not bad. It's just they're kid actors being asked to carry a movie. Child actors are not often given the reign of the kingdom in the movies that they're in. They're often, I think of The Mummy Returns often as a very good example of, like, you put a kid in the movie and you kind of ruined it. This is like, if there are no kids in this movie, there is no movie. And I think it was really smart to have Chris Columbus be the person to direct the first 2 movies, because the first 2 movies are kid-centric. And then beyond that, we kind of start running into other things. But I agree with you. The first movie obviously is the right answer here, 100%. It's a fantastic movie. It has the better versions of some of the characters, too. The first 2 movies do. Let's take this opportunity to mention Dumbledore does get recast in these movies, which is an unfortunate thing, because for me, Richard Harris is Dumbledore. Like, I love Michael Gambon. He's amazing. He really is.
Yeah.
His energy that he brings is so different, because Michael Gambon, and again, having seen The Cook, The Thief, his wife and her lover, having seen that movie now, it's like, that guy played Dumbledore? For fuck's sake. And look, Richard Harris is a Hellraiser of his own, obviously. He is in the same class as, like, an Oliver Reed type, mentioned in the same breath, because Richard Harris was known for being a wild human being who got into all kinds of stuff. Okay, him playing Dumbledore for a certain group of people is shocking, similarly to Michael Gambon playing Dumbledore is to a certain group of people is shocking. But I love the fatherly mentorship and character that Richard Harris is conveying with his Dumbledore. And it's sorely missed in the other movies. I would actually say, again, unfairly here, to answer the question with a level of finality, I think you watch the first 2 movies. I think you watch the first 2 movies, and I think you watch the first 2 movies, and if you want to continue beyond that, you're not in for a different time. But the third movie, when we're about to talk about it, because I'm assuming it might be the answer for some of us for the next question, is a literal 180 in so many ways, stylistically, tonally, plot-wise. The first 2 movies are kids' movies. Second movie pushes the envelope a little bit more than the first one does, but they're movies for kids made by a director who understands how to direct children, especially in a fantasy world. Yeah, I'm not saying the first movie is a perfect movie, but the first movie is a very good example of how you do fantasy right for people in their children in their 7 to teens, so young adults, teenagers. I think the Harry Potter series and the first 2 movies are really perfect examples of that.
Well said. While you were saying that, one of the things that kind of hit me. I was never really excited about another adaptation of Harry Potter stuff, but the fact that they're doing TV, one of the things that really sticks out now with the 2-hour film, you can't really develop these characters very much.
At all.
And so we know the main three essentially like really well, but this world is full of tons of characters that have very different experiences, very different perspectives of Harry Potter. And I guarantee, if we get something like 12 episodes of what you're talking about, I can't imagine how much better you could flesh out even some of these ones that feel like main characters that really kind of aren't, because they get like very specific feuding screen time with Harry Potter, but you don't ever really feel
moment one, you mean?
Yeah, but you don't really feel their motivations. Like it's just, oh, this kid's just a bully. Well, no, there's other stuff that is causing him to be like that. And so you'll get more. So man, that the way you just said that, something turned in me, and yeah, I feel like it's going to be, it's important. I'm glad we're doing it now.
And to your point about adapting the series, like, and this is a thing that like genuinely always sticks out to me, and me and some close friends that watch these movies when we're gaming or just have them on in the background, we always comment on two things. They say the word muggle a lot, which is effectively this world's version of the N-word, but it's directed at people who don't know what it means, which is always such a weird thing because they say muggle a lot. Muggle is a derogatory term for non-magic people. And like, that is literally like it's comparable to the N-word and the F-word in our world. But the thing is, they never make point of it. And I know what you're going to say. Mudblood is the other term.
That's more of the N-word. I think muggle.
But the thing is, mudblood only exists because mudblood is an offensive term that the wizards know is offensive to them. Muggle is offensive to a non-magic person. Should find muggle offensive, but they don't know what that term means. It's weird. Like, if you think about it, muggle is only offensive if you know what it means, and the intention behind using the term is the people that don't know. They don't know they're being referred to as muggles. They walk into the world and say muggle a lot, and the term mudblood is tied into the word muggle. You can't have it without it.
This is a weird thing for two white guys to argue about.
But my point is, like, it is strange to me, because there are subplots in these movies that are based around the idea of, like, you don't refer to someone as a mudblood. Dirty blood. Yeah, ain't any wizard that doesn't have half-blood. Or so whatever the hell Hagrid says. And that's the other point, and that's the point that I think you're somewhat driving at, and I want to drive home, is Harry Potter is a white person movie. There are very few ethnic anybody's in the movie, and it's a fucking shame. And my hope is, with the new adaptation, is that the cast is diverse and very ethnically diverse, because, like you said, and I will parrot it, Harry Potter, like Star Wars, has spent almost all of the time in these movies and in the books focusing on one tiny corner, important corner obviously, but a tiny corner of this world, which is the story of Harry Potter and how his singular story affects the world at large. But like we've seen with Star Wars and so many other things, there is a whole world out there that has nothing to do with any of these people. It has nothing to do with Harry Potter, has nothing to do with Hogwarts even. We know now, thanks to Fantastic Beasts, that that the United States has its own Hogwarts and its own Wizarding Council and all kinds of stuff. And for me, that's my hope, is that the Harry Potter TV show leads to other things in that world being created that are much more interesting, because yes, I'm looking forward to this series being readapted, but at the same time, I know the story and they can't make that big of changes. They just can't. There are some things they can't change. So as far as I'm concerned, like, Harry Potter needs to do a better job at representation, which for me in this day and age is important, because yes, I am a white man, but I am also gay in a hetero presenting relationship. But at the same time, there are so many people that aren't. And there are so many kids that don't get to see someone that looks like themselves on screen. And you know what? I know people might, ooh, whatever, Chris, that's really stupid. You know what? Your fucking answer to that pisses me off if you say that, because you're automatically discounting a whole group of people, namely children and young adults, who are impressionable and do want to see people that look like them on screen. And that is important. And I hope the adaptation of Harry Potter on television fixes that. Because you know what? Hermione doesn't have to be white. Maybe Ron does because he has red hair and a pasty British boy. But you know what? I don't know if you've never been to the UK, but there are a lot of people in the UK that aren't white. Oh, and they sound like a normal British people too.
Yeah.
And I know, like, again, some people may roll their eyes at me and some people may say SJW or whatever, but you know what? Somebody has to say it. And if it's going to be me, I'll let it be me and whatever. But I'm genuine in my feelings just as much as I know you are. I know I speak for both of us in that regard. So let's move on to the second question, maybe. Or do you want to add anything else to that?
No, I'll let that fly. Representation is important, and anybody that says it's not, you're wrong.
Right. It is. It's so important. It's important, especially when it's stuff like this, the highest of high profile things.
Well, maybe I do want to add one thing then. The fact that you said, yes, it's a white movie. I think the worst thing here is when there randomly is like, oh, there goes a black kid at Hogwarts. It is so obvious that they're like, oh, there's one of them. Let's focus on that for a moment. And it's so cringe.
Well, I'll point something out to you that will really make your skin crawl. There's all of one Asian character in the series, and do you know what their name is? It's effectively the most racist name possible. Cho Chang.
Pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. You're like a couple syllables away from being a stereotypical Asian name that someone would joke about on The Simpsons.
Right.
So
in 1991, not in 2023.
And he's doing the flapping dicky? I mean, that's the thing. They're even joking about how in bad taste it is then in The Simpsons. Like, yeah, Cho Chang, really? That's wow. What way to really flex your muscles there. So yeah, no, the less we say about the author, the better, but the more we say about how important representation is in film and cinema and media in general, but especially in things that are uber popular with people, that helps to, again, foster a sense of belonging that I think is important in this day and age because othering people is very popular.
Yeah, you're right. On that note, hey, Chris, for our second question, why don't you let everybody know what is a lesser known entry into this franchise that maybe isn't the best first watch if you've never seen any of these, but one that everybody would still probably appreciate?
So I hope I don't steal your answer, but I know that I'm going to, I feel like at this point. Really? I'm going to go with Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I think for me, it's the best movie in the series objectively. The fact that it's directed by Alfonso Cuarón is just... We were talking about it offline when we decided to do this topic, and now we get to talk about it online. What in God's name? Like, it's like if David Lynch directed Return of the Jedi. Oh, wait, David Lynch was offered the job to direct Return of the Jedi. We do not see directors of the caliber like Alfonso Cuarón directing Harry Potter films now.
Right.
Well, actually, let me take a step back and ask you. J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Colin Trevorrow, they're not in the same camp as Alfonso Cuarón, right? Like they make different kinds of movies. Their expectations are different, and the people who go see their movies' expectations are different. I think when I remembered reading that Alfonso Cuarón was directing Azkaban, I remember thinking, what? Like, because again, like, the things that he's made since, obviously, are immensely popular, immensely successful. Guys won 2 directing Academy Awards for 2 different movies. Neither of those movies even won Best Picture, which is, I mean, again, have at that information with what you will, but he is not only the first Mexican filmmaker to win Best Director, but he also got nominated for... He's the second person to get nominated for 7 different Academy Awards. You know who the first person was? Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, okay.
People, who, like I kind of alluded to, is my favorite part of the second movie. That character of Gilderoy Lockhart,
he's wild.
He steals my heart every time. He's such a dickhead in the best way. When he makes Harry Potter's arm turn into like Flappy arm, it's just like, this guy's a clown and he's gonna kill people. But the third movie is so dark tonally. It's more it is more mature. I think it's more mature even than anything past it. I know that it sets the tone for 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, but I think number 3 is objectively the best film in the franchise because the person who's directing it has an eye for film in a way that, again, we've seen past that in so many other ways. But he brings it to the movie in a way that I really appreciate every time I watch it, because he's making a Harry Potter movie his own, and he's doing things with it that are memorable but different, but recognizable but different. And again, Steve Kloves, I think we haven't really mentioned him a whole lot, and I think he bears some of the praise here as well, because he works on Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Azkaban, Goblet, Prince, and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2. Now, I think, again, Beyond the third movie is kind of, you're kind of on your own if you want to go any further than that. But for me, the third movie, if I could just watch the third movie and tell you to watch the third movie and nothing else, I would. But the third movie, I think, is really hard to watch on its own because it is furthered. The narrative has been furthered to the point where lack of prior information is going to diminish your ability to enjoy the movie, other than just it's a well-made film, well-directed, well-shot, well-lit too, by the way, which I think is one of the things for me that really stands out about Prisoner of Azkaban is the way the film is lit. And again, the third movie also drops a lot of the things you've never seen before. And it's like,
look at this talking hat.
Yeah, now it's like old hat, no pun intended at this point. But the other thing I want to mention about the third movie is it introduces, I think for me, one of the most important characters in the franchise, which is Remus Lupin, played by David Thewlis.
Never mind. I was going to champion someone else. I'll champion it right
Gary
after.
Oldman.
Sure. He's fucking amazing in this.
I know he is, but so is David Thewlis, and David Thewlis' character is... David Thewlis' character is one of the casualties of the adaptation, which is unfortunate because he doesn't show up enough in the other movies past this one. This is the Remus Lupin and Sirius Black show in a lot of ways, this movie, especially the second half of the movie. But David Thewlis is so good. And he's such an interesting father figure for Harry, because Harry has all these father figures throughout the movies, and each movie kind of introduces a new one or reintroduces an old one or recontextualizes one of them when you get to the end of the series. And I wish there was more David Thewlis. I kind of hope when they cast the show, they just recast some of the people in the roles that are still around, because I don't think anybody can do as good of a job as David Thewlis as Remus Lupin. I will be proven wrong when they don't cast him, and whoever it is just as good. But David Thewlis is amazing in the third movie. But that's the thing. The third movie for me also opens the world up more in an interesting way by saying, it's not all fun and games in the world of Harry Potter, and here's why, and here's how, and it's more mature now, and look, we understand that it's never told in the first two movies that there's wizard jail, but in the third movie, that's literally in the goddamn title, is Azkaban, the wizard prison. Wizard Alcatraz.
Weird sentence to hear.
Wizard Alcatraz too, like when we end up seeing it, it's literally Wizard Alcatraz on top of everything else. But for me, the third movie just... As much as I love the second movie, which is my favorite in the franchise, 100% the third movie is objectively the best film in the franchise. It's just I can't, in good conscience, tell you to watch it because you will not. If you've never seen anything else, you won't understand what's going on. There's no previously on Harry Potter at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that is a tough part. I will say the introduction to Gary Oldman, though, like I understand the Lupin and all that. It's great. Gary Oldman is just easily one of the best actors of all time, obviously. And when you see him as Sirius Black, and he brings this odd empathy and also like suspicion about a character in this movie. And I think a lot of that, kudos to Cuarón, because I think the way he directs specifically the scenes around Sirius Black, it leads you to question so many things. And obviously it's probably written like that in the books. I've never read them, but I think
Six
the way
doesn't half the other.
the way that he actually directs those scenes, it's like master filmmaking. It feels like a storyline taken out of an old, like, late 80s thriller, almost where you've got somebody that could easily double cross you in a heartbeat, and you'd be like, oh, I'm kind of surprised, but also, yeah, they kind of set that up pretty well.
Right.
And the interactions with Sirius it's just all so well done, obviously heavily on the shoulders of Gary Oldman, because he pulls off that character very well.
Well, and to your point, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a cheat in the third movie that it's like, if you've never read the books, they try to make sure that you are misled that Sirius Black is the villain. I mean, look, everybody who read the books knew that that wasn't the case, but that's not for their benefit. It's for the benefit of the film-going audience. And I agree with you. It could have felt contrived. And I will say there are a couple parts where it feels a little contrived, because, like, why don't you just tell him you're his godfather, you dickhead, for fuck's sake? Like, tell him what you're doing. But to your point, Cuarón's direction is fantastic, and obviously Gary Oldman. I mean, I look, I think David Thewlis is as good of an actor as Gary Oldman, but Gary Oldman is given the part to play where you get to really show how good of an actor you are.
Right.
So you are the titular prisoner of Azkaban in the movie. So I have to hear what your answer is, though, because I am so curious.
So this one, I thought about it for a while, and I did, like, the third one is great. Obviously, this is probably the highest quality film in the entire franchise. But for me, one of the ones that I think back to the most often, because it has more of a memorable script for me, is the next entry, which is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And now this one doesn't have the pastiche of Alfonso Cuarón. However, it was directed by the same guy who did Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, so it's got that going for it.
I like Mike Newell, by the way. Like, that, this would have been the other answer, and I'm so glad that this is your answer.
So yeah, he's a decent director, especially like in the late 80s to what he did in the 90s. He did some really great stuff. Obviously, Four Weddings and a Funeral is probably my favorite from him, but Donnie Brasco, Pushing Tin, a lot of people love. Mona Lisa Smile, I remember being about, but decent, nothing terrible. But man, the Goblet of Fire. So this is, we've heard about the Triwizard Tournament, I think, in passing a couple times, but some of the most exciting scenes in those first couple of movies are the Quidditch scenes, and the way that they set up, like, these random ass tournaments in sports that gotta love the visual effect.
See? I did, in fact, put my name in this Goblet of Fire.
Nice. Yeah, the way that they've alluded to these competitions and the different sports that wizards can carry out on, and then seeing that play out on top of introducing Robert Pattinson as just an interesting character. And I think he plays, obviously, a big part in this movie, but it showed a lot of his flexibility as an actor early on. And this was before the whole craze behind him, and I think it set up everything that he was to do in the rest of his career. But this movie's pretty well done. It's got some dark scenes. It again carries on a little bit more of that maturity. There's literally people, like, on the verge of death in a couple of these. The hard part, it's certainly not as well made as the entry before it, Prisoner of Azkaban, or Azkaban, however you say it. Yeah, Mike Newell does not like this one nearly as well as Cuarón. It definitely loses a lot of that in especially the second half of this film. I am impressed that they hold all of it together, and that the plot for this centering around the Triwizard Championship is so deeply ingrained in the story. And I think it serves as a really nice, I guess, we've talked about the characters aging, but it's like the adolescent movie. It's the one where they are
hair movie is what it is for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're entering that weird phase into where they're almost about to be older teenagers. And you can see that growth where they're forced to be facing more adult situations, and they pull it off fairly well. I think this is a really good entry into the franchise. Certainly not the worst, far from the best, but I think this is one that once you've watched a couple of the others, you'll probably really appreciate this film.
I'm not sure it's far from the best. I think it's still in the top. I think it's in the top half of these movies.
But when there's only 8, I mean.
Well, but here's the thing. I think when there's only 8, I think that I'll put it this way. I think the quality of the top 4 is vastly greater than the quality of the bottom four. I mean, we have barely talked about the last four movies of this franchise. And there's a reason for that, because for me, past Goblet of Fire, it becomes more about, look, in Goblet of Fire, the main villain of the series is introduced. Finally. We've seen him in other forms throughout. Goblet of Fire, as far as I'm concerned, that's normally where I stop watching, because I know how this is going to end. I'm not a huge fan of the latter four movies. I'm also not a huge fan of David Yates' direction. I think it's like, I don't get why they stuck with him for so long. And for so long, he directed everything. He directed literally everything else that wasn't directed by Mike Newell, Cuarón, or Columbus. And I mean even the Fantastic Beasts stuff, because he directed all of the Fantastic Beasts movies as well. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know what? I don't know how to put this any other way. Those Fantastic Beasts movies are fucking terrible. All of them. And it's has nothing to do with Johnny Depp. It has nothing to do with Johnny Depp. It has to do with the story that they're telling is just Harry Potter again. Like, why are we doing the same? We have a white wizard who's running around trying to save everybody from a overwhelming threat that's being built up to be similar to Voldemort.
Right.
Shit, guys, why just go watch Harry Potter? Oh, but we're gonna and the funny thing is, if you think about it, the first movie has very little recognizable stuff other than like it's the magic world, and here are some things you've heard mentioned in passing, like Newt Scamander or some of the creatures. The second movie's like, oh, now here's the Voldemort adjacent character. Now here's, and it's just like, I don't need this again, because those first 8 movies, as kind of problematic as the later four are with me, those later 4 movies are like masterpieces compared to any of those Fantastic Beasts movies. And I don't think it's solely because of David Yates, but I don't think David Yates helped. I don't think he does. He never rises to the occasion of a Newell or a Cuarón or even a Chris Columbus. He just kind of, it's very workmanlike. And the fact that he works so closely with Warner Brothers and that he's a Warner Brothers guy, that's the reason why he's directing all these movies. But man, when you bring someone like a Cuarón in to do the movie, that's why we're talking about that third movie so lovingly, is because everything else just kind of feels samey. Like the Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and the last 2 movies all feel the same. All the same. Just like very plot-driven, not character-driven. It's very much like we got to get here and here.
They look the same, too. That's the other big thing.
Yeah. No sense of style whatsoever. They're all very gray and muted, and the colors pulled out. And again, like I mentioned, the sense of fun in the world of Harry Potter is something that I really appreciate. The sense of, and it can be overwhelming in the first 2 movies, but there still needs to be a sense of it in the later movies. In the later movies, there's none of it. There's no sense of fun. And yeah, I know some people may kind of roll their eyes at me, but I don't really watch past that 4th movie. I really don't.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if going back to Christopher Columbus would have been a great move, but I feel like they should have just had this entire thing play out with either a different director on every single film, yes, or clearly like when 3 and 4 got pretty decent reviews, chase people like that, chase people that were outside of this genre that know how to make a movie, and when you bring them a good source material, they can make something great out of it. I mean, it's not rocket science. I don't understand. It's just better choices. Come on.
Well, and what I don't understand is the Tichborne Claimant, which is the first film that David Yates directed. I've gone back and watched some of it. I don't understand what they saw with his filmmaking that would lend them to think this is the guy we want directing our teenage children franchise. Like, it's just, he doesn't add anything the way Cuarón or even a Mike Newell does. I mean, I remember watching some of the documentary, like some of the behind the scenes stuff on the disc about the 4th movie, and like Mike Newell was a tough customer. Like, he's a tough director. But I think when you have child actors, like, that's a good thing, because someone has to have a firm but gentle hand to lead that ship. And Cuarón and Mike Newell clearly are in that camp. Same with Christopher Columbus. David Yates just, yeah, why they like committed so hard to him is beyond me. I mean, again, I hope he's not involved in the film. The film's being readapted into a TV show, but there's a very high likelihood that he directs the first episode because he's it's like, I'm good. And I think also that those Fantastic Beasts movies are just whatever in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, I don't know if I mentioned up top. I still haven't seen any of the Fantastic Beasts movies, primarily because they don't look interesting at all.
Well, past the first one, they're not really interesting. And also, I mean, who doesn't love a good movie with Ezra Miller in it, right? Speaking of problematic people, I always forget that he's in all three of those movies.
Oh,
I know, it's like somehow, even though the person who wrote these books is terrible, somehow they one-upped themselves.
Well, let's move away from that quickly then. And number 3 here, Chris, what is the biggest impact the Harry Potter franchise has had on pop culture? Because this answer could be like 19 things.
Well, I think it could be 19 things, but I think the singular answer here for me, and maybe this is the obvious one, maybe it's not, I kind of alluded to it already. Harry Potter, the book series, and Harry Potter, the film series, created, and it's still going on now, the golden age of YA entertainment. Like Harry Potter 1 and the Sorcerer's Stone book 1 created an entire genre, essentially, of YA fantasy books that everybody has been chasing, no pun intended, the white dragon of Harry Potter since. Because, I'm not going to say her name, the author is a billionaire because of this series, a fucking billionaire, because of a book series that they wrote. Like, and you know why? Because everybody else has been trying to copy and ape Harry Potter since, and they've done it to varying degrees of success. You mentioned our Pats. Twilight comes out 2 years after Goblet of Fire does. 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and then we have Twilight with Robert Pattinson being the lead of his own YA fantasy horror, I guess. I don't know what anyone would consider Twilight other than undersexed and overpromised, but I think YA entertainment is better for Harry Potter having come out, and I think YA entertainment is what it is now because of the mold that Harry Potter created and then promptly smashed so nobody else could copy it. But as far as I'm concerned, and again, maybe somebody can check me on it, Harry Potter is the pinnacle, peak, top, Everest point of YA entertainment. There has not been anything better to come out for people of a certain age looking for fantasy. This is it. Could you make the case for Lord of the Rings? Sure, but I think Lord of the Rings is best enjoyed in your late teens, early adults versus like being a child. Because I think the books of Lord of the Rings and the films of Lord of the Rings are talking about different things and asking different questions. And Harry Potter speaks directly to a young audience because it's about growing old. It's about getting old. It's about keeping friends. It's, again, we talked about the found family idea, not fitting in the world, the otherness that you feel that maybe isn't real. In so many of our cases, none of us ever got our Hogwarts invitations because it's not real, guys. But so many people live in a world where they'd like to believe that there's, like so many others, got lost in the mail, or I think there's a literal plot device within the book series that describes why people in the 90s wouldn't have gotten their invitations to Hogwarts because of because of what was going on in the book series. But for me, Harry Potter opens the door for YA entertainment. It busts the door down in so many ways. I'm like, again, Maze Runner, Divergent, Hunger Games, Twilight, The list, Percy Jackson, even directed by Chris Columbus. Those things don't exist without Harry Potter. And maybe they do exist, but in a different way. And I don't think they're nearly as successful or popular because once Harry Potter was over, there was a whole group of people looking for something else. And there were people looking for something else when they knew the Harry Potter movies were ending and the books were ending as well. So I think for me, it sets the stage and it sets the tone for what YA entertainment has been since these movies came out, which is rather well done and ever present. I mean, it seems like we've kind of moved out of it a little bit, but then a Hunger Games movie came out this year.
Right.
So have we really? And I wouldn't be surprised if we get more Twilight something. I wouldn't even be surprised if they readapt Twilight. Like, as far as I'm,
it'll happen.
well, it should happen, because talk about a series of books that aren't as bad as the movies. Like, the movies of Twilight they're the example of bad YA entertainment. But again, not really, because they speak to the people who enjoy them. So it's just me who doesn't like Twilight. Look, Twilight made more money than God. Not as much money as Harry Potter, but it made a lot of money. So yeah, for me, it's the introduction of a YA franchise that is unlike any other, and that is still a powerhouse to this day. There's no Twilight Land at Universal Studios, guys, but there's Harry Potter's Wizarding World. Like, I mean, to say it's just to introduce the character of Harry Potter into the world is probably enough, because Harry Potter, I think, is as ubiquitous as Darth Vader, Jesus, and Mickey Mouse at this point. Like,
For sure.
the inclusion in these theme parks as a good point of reference. They build it, and people come in droves, to the point where I've been to the Wizarding World twice. Both times I was there, it was the most crowded part of those parks by leaps and bounds. And you know why? Because it's a world that people want to live in. The world of magic is something that people have always wanted, and then the author contextualizes it and turns it into something that you can live in. Yeah, I mean, again, YA entertainment has never been the same after Harry Potter, period.
This is a good answer, and not one that I went to immediately. So even though you say it's the obvious one,
I felt like it was.
I mean, looking at it now, yeah, it might be. I think for me, the biggest thing here is, and I don't even know the right way to say this, but this franchise is just the perfect vehicle to be a catalyst for so many incredible actors' careers. I mean, Robert Pattinson would not be as big as he is without Harry Potter. Daniel Radcliffe, obviously. You've got Emma Watson. You've got Rupert Grint has done and started doing a handful of other things. There's a bunch. Finally, yeah. There's a bunch of these other like smaller actors that are finally starting to do things because they were in this, and they've gotten calls for some other things. And it's especially Radcliffe and Emma Watson, obviously. They've both done major things past this franchise, and without being cast at the age of like 7 or whatever they were, it never would have happened for them the way that it has, because they go from the Harry Potter franchise to literally starring in other things, not just like supporting actor to earn your way to leading actor in a film, but they are both coming off of those with the ability and with the experience to hold up things like, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Daniel Radcliffe being in fucking Guns Akimbo, which is, wildly different from all of the Harry Potter movies. And he can carry a movie like that. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast is another big franchise one, obviously, but it's so interesting to see the way that some of these people respond to being in these franchises. Like Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart technically are both the perfect example of this, because when you get cast in a YA franchise and you're stuck there for 5 to 8 films, I guarantee that they both had the temptation to stay in that same lane and just make a fuckboat of money. Like, you could have easily kept making movies like that, and instead Stewart and Pattinson have made the most interesting choices in the world since then, and they've both excelled drastically. Like, the Robert Pattinson that's in Twilight 2 is not the Robert Pattinson in Good Time or The Lighthouse. It's
Batman, or literally fucking Batman.
I was going to leave that one out because, again, it's just another franchise thing.
But it's
and
crazy, though. He's in like Robert Pattinson is Batman. Like, right?
It is wild. Yeah, obviously. I don't even know how to explain it. And Kristen Stewart is maybe the more interesting thing here to discuss, because she's made choices like Adventureland and working with Olivier Assayas and getting Underwater out of nowhere. Like the Kristen Stewart in Underwater is not an actor that you see in the Twilight films. It's somebody carrying a film that is well made and dramatic and tense and so different from everything that you see in that franchise. So I can go on and on about all these actors, obviously, but it's impressive to see a franchise like this that casts these people from a very young age and mold them into being literal great actors.
I would put an addendum on what you said, which is also a really funny thing to think about, and I kind of alluded to it already. Imagine how many kids love Alan Rickman now. What a fucking weird thing. Like again, like Hans Gruber, like is now like again, like he is, I would contend, like the main one of the 2 or 3 main adult actors in the series. And like it's weird to me that there is a group of people that love him for one role that have never seen him in anything else and maybe never will. But he's so ubiquitous as Snape, just like Michael Gambon, just like Richard Harris, just like and the one that always sticks out to me, Maggie Smith as McGonagall. Like these are actors like are probably like thanking their lucky stars they were in these movies because they are literally enshrined for people forever. Like the complaints that we will see when these movies are these books are readapted, it's not going to be in the recasting of the kids. I'll tell you that much. I think the people are going to be upset, if anything, of who they cast as the adults, because the adult characters are as important in this series, especially in the later movies. But the fact that like a group of like a large population of millennials love Alan Rickman is just hilarious to me. Like of all the actors, Alan Rickman, like, yeah, but I can't see Snape as anybody else, period. Like it's going to be hard to watch something else and it'd be like, this is a different take on this pitch perfect version of the character.
So I was going to say something at the very end of this episode and you said the name. So now I want to address it. I am astonished that we get Maggie Smith in 8 of these films, who is, by all accounts, somebody that has been around for a very, very long time, clearly. She's pretty old. She was born in 1934. She looked incredibly old, starring in Hook in the early 90s, and we get her for 8 Harry Potter movies, and she is a foundational part of these movies. She is incredible. She is that stern, but also like caring adult overlooker over these kids for everything. And she's just so empathetic at the end of it. She's, lovable. She's just amazing. Like she's one of my favorite parts of all these movies.
Yeah. I mean, again, we kind of mentioned the child actors. I think it's a little unfair because the first 4 movies, the child actors they're getting their sea legs beneath them. It takes a while. The later 4 movies, I think the later 4 movies are good examples of how good Radcliffe, Grint, and Watson can be. I think the first 4 movies really are the adults, like carrying the weight to get the kind of story up to speed, as it were. And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Kenneth Branagh, for fuck's sake. Emma Thompson is in there. Again, Richard Harris, Michael Gambon, like, yeah. The fact that these are people that people my age think lovingly of who have had 30, 40-year careers before this. And this is like, for so many of them, like you've kind of alluded to, no pun intended, the twilights of their careers, or should be. And yet all of a sudden you could go to a con and sit at a table and you'd have a line at the fucking door. I've seen it for Tom Felton, like, Draco Malfoy, like that child actor, like now doing his thing. It's awesome. But at the same time, like if you're a Robbie Coltrane, obviously he's passed away, John Cleese, Warwick Davis, John Hurt, even in a lot of ways, Alan Rickman, like they're loved by people for this and nothing else. And that's crazy to me because they're fantastic actors outside of these movies even.
Yeah. Well said.
So to bring us home, Ryan, what is a cinematic bridge to Harry Potter that you think if they like this, they might also like Harry Potter?
I've got an interesting take here, and it's probably going to be laughed at a little bit. But considering I don't love fantasy, the thing that I originally watched Harry Potter and went, oh, this is kind of similar to some of these other things. I had 2 things come to mind. And the first one is really obvious, so I'll get it out of the way, but it's The Princess Bride. The movie is an interesting, fantasy approach for a lot of people around that time. It was, something for millennials and younger Gen X was probably one of the more watched films in their childhood. But then something happened while I was watching this for the 3rd time. And I went, I think one of the reasons I like this is because I get some of the same feelings that I got while watching Labyrinth. I love Labyrinth. First of all, everybody that knows me well knows I love anything with Jim Henson and Muppets and all that fun stuff. Labyrinth was a giant movie for me as a kid. Obviously, the puppets are a big part of that, and David Bowie was one of my favorite musicians as a part of that. But beyond all that, just that fantastical approach to a fairly benign storyline is something that you can feel in many of these movies, because you can take it out of the fantasy setting and it still has that same drama, still has that same tension. It's just amped up by the fact that we're people arguing about which wands they're going to purchase, and who's a mudblood, and why this kid is the chosen wizard, and all this other things. Like, those just enhance the lore surrounding a fairly common story. Like, a lot of these things, it's just the same story recycled over many of these movies that we love. It's how you take that story and make it exciting for a new audience. So I think these are great movies. I think Labyrinth is an incredible film. And if you like Labyrinth, I really feel like you'll find something to love in the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, I think those are good examples. I think you're going to laugh at what I'm going to say. So here's the thing, and we've kind of alluded to it. These are movies about teenagers, kids and teenagers, right? So if you're into things like, and I think this speaks more to the school and high schooliness of these movies. If you're a fan of stuff like Mean Girls, High School Musical, things that are focused on high school kids, this is definitely your bag. It's very different, but so much of these movies are just high school kids not getting along with each other. And then we drop that into the fantasy setting and put some fantasy dressing on it. But some of the best scenes in these movies are just these kids interacting with each other with no magical pretense involved. And look, I think what's kind of hard here, and I think as we do these franchises, making this cinematic bridge in a lot of ways, like, do I need to make a cinematic bridge to Harry Potter for someone? Like, you know what I mean? It's so ubiquitous as a thing, like Harry Potter, there's nothing else you could mistake it for, and you know what it is when someone says it. And if you don't, I don't know how big Harry Potter is outside of the Western world, I guess, is my thing here. Like, I don't know, are people in India or China or Saudi Arabia or Yemen or anywhere where it's, again, like, not necessarily ethnically European or white people are in mass quantity. Is this a thing that anybody there is into? I've got to assume that there's some interest in it just based on the story alone. But I think for me, like, anyone who's into like high school dramas or like high school movies, this series is kind of in that wheelhouse, because so many of the movies really are just about kids not getting along with each other. Yes, there's a big bad guy. Yes, but like in so many of those high school movies, there's always kind of this antagonist. Are the stakes as high as in Harry Potter? No, of course not. In those movies, it's often like, we're not going to win the big game, or we're not going to have enough money to do the thing. But in Harry Potter, it's like the world's going to get destroyed. So if you like a teen movie with some stakes, I think Harry Potter is definitely for you. I mean, I would say Lord of the Rings and other fantasy things, but like, that's unfair because this is just fantasy. And if you like fantasy, you've probably already seen this. So to your point, I was trying to figure out a way to get people who have nothing to do with fantasy in the door, and watching just the way that these teenagers interact with each other made me think of, again, the best and sometimes the worst of a certain subgenre of film, which is the teen comedy or the high school movie. So I don't know. Again, is it a little bit of a stretch? No. Is it maybe too on the nose? Possibly, but it's not as kind of far reaching as I'm not saying yours are reaching, but yours are very deep this time.
Yeah, I went for very singular films, which I tend to not do too much for this answer. But another one that really sticks out, like, I loved Willow when I was a kid too. That's very similar to these, and obviously has a lot of the same people behind them. And
Warwick Davis is in this
movie. Right. So I completely get it, having the same feeling. This is an odd one because it's a revolutionary franchise. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. To say, like, let me recommend something similar if you haven't seen this. It's kind of hard not to have seen one of these. If you
right, even my parents have seen these movies, like, and my parents don't like fantasy at all. Like, my folks have seen these movies, so Like, yeah, like you said, if you're not into fantasy, I understand why this is a hard sell. I will say, and I think you would agree, this is not high concept fantasy.
No.
This is essentially like literally the high school experience, but with magic and increase. And instead of the bully just beating your ass, he's going to kill everybody.
Right. Which, again, I think that's one of the worst things about a lot of these. And it's got to come up in every episode. This is one of the things I hate about the MCU and like Harry Potter and a couple of these other things. The stakes don't have to be the fucking world.
Right.
We don't have to have everything is going to explode if he gets what he wants. Like, that is old and tired and makes it feel so much more fake. Let's do something a little more realistic and feasible.
You can tell big stories in the small corners of the universe. Andor did it. The Mandalorian did it for a while. Until it decided to just do the thing that everything else does, which is just start ingesting shitloads of nostalgia bait and, going back to the things everybody loves one more time now, guys. But yeah, I kind of find it hard if you've never seen a Harry Potter movie. Like, is that a thing? Like,
yeah, there's quite a few people that have never seen any of them. And
I get it. I get it. At this point, I get it.
I get not starting them right now, that's for sure. However, if you've never seen them and you want to start them, check out the Harry Potter franchise. And now that you've listened to this episode, you've got a lot of insight on what might be a good entry point, ones that you might be able to look forward to if you're starting from the beginning, and some things to consider that made some giant impacts on pop culture as you go through it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. And Chris, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me over at the aforementioned weirdingwaymedia.com, where this show and so many other fantastic shows not hosted by me with zero involvement of my voice can be found, including 80s TV Ladies, Feminine Critique, Twisted and Uncorked, the Filmentary podcast, The Projection Booth, Dark Destinations, and there are like 15 more. That's like 5 of the 20. So if you want to listen to podcasts about pop culture, Weirding Way Media is the place to go. There's only one podcast you can't find on there. Want to find more out about that? Patreon.com/culturecast. What about you, Ryan? Where can people find you and your assorted works?
Everywhere under the name The Disconnected. And since you're shouting out podcast, I will name some of the ones on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network today as well. Everybody needs to go check out They Live by Film. They do a really great deep dive on films every other episode. And then in the alternating episodes, they do some interviews, kind of like I do on my show, with some boutique labels, some filmmakers, stuff like that. The other big one is Unsung Horrors. Every single episode, they take a horror movie that has less than 1,000 views on Letterboxd and do a deep dive on it and try to entice everybody to give it a watch, because if it hits 1,000, they will not cover it. A couple others, I do host the Incinerator podcast with my partner Billy Ray Bruton. We are going off and on with episodes all the time, it feels like, but he is a busy man. So check out some of the back catalog there, because those episodes get wild. I love it. And then finally, Billy Ray also hosts his own podcast, Movie Mixtapes, where he gives somebody a topic and they come together and make a movie mixtape based on a genre of film. And it's a really great, wholesome video podcast, or not video podcast, wholesome podcast that you can, just get a lot of recommendations about a deep dive on a genre. And it's great.
Like, rate, and review this show wherever you get it, more than likely iTunes. And we'll catch you back for the next episode of Film Foundations, where we will continue our film journey. Won't you join us?
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.